Well, we're going to take a look at the old beauty hole, Beebye's beauty hole, as of Thursday, May the 7th, 2026. It's going to be Mother's Day weekend, and things are looking pretty good. Uh, so this here was my daffodils, and they bloomed way early this year. They usually bloom around my grandma's birthday, which is April 4th, and they bloomed before that this year. They started blooming at the end of March, so a mild winter plus some early warmth got those to bloom early. Now those right there, that's irises. These are irises. You can see the yellow ones really have proliferated more even than the purple ones. The purple ones are for Mom and Dad's house in Clay City. The yellow ones, I think mostly, are ones that I found here and transplanted. They were over by the house, and I moved them, and I may need to split them up because they are getting, but they look great, don't they? They look great. They started blooming. The first bloom was the purple bloom, and it started blooming the day that we left to go to London, which was April 22nd, I believe. And so this is May the 7th, and they're still blooming. You can see some of the blooms are spent, but we're still getting ready to have some blooms. So we got more time. Let's look at what's going on here. I don't know why that does that. Pisses me off. This is spearmint, Kentucky Colonel spearmint. It's doing really well. I had some chocolate mint there last year, and it didn't survive the winter. This is Provence lavender, or as my sister calls it, Providence lavender. And it's doing pretty well, getting ready to bloom. This here is lemon balm. I'm going to have to cut it a little bit because it's going to shade the lavender and the blazing star out. Although the blazing star, once it gets up a little bit, will shoot up and do fine. That is Hidcote lavender, which is English lavender. Provence lavender is like a French lavender. Got some blue sage there. You probably can't see it from here. It's a really, really small plant, but it's there. These bushy, green, grassy looking things are my prairie blazing star. And I've got some new plants that I got at the native plant sale right before we went to England, and I got them in the ground before we left. So that's a sky blue aster. Up there is a smooth blue aster, and I've got it in the cage because the rabbits like it. Rabbits like asters, and when they eat the ones that are established, it's no big deal, but I can't have them eating the little baby ones, even though they're so nice and tender. You can see the hollyhocks from last year are coming back. We'll see what they do. Technically, most hollyhocks are just supposed to be biennial, but these are coming back from the crowns, so, and they bloomed last year, so we'll see what they do. And then several of them are coming up from seed, so you can see I'm gonna have them in improper spaces, but there's a set of them, there's a set of them, and so we'll just see. They probably won't do really well down here anyway because hollyhocks have a really long, there's another one. Hollyhocks have a really long taproot, and they're not going to be able to put down much of a taproot down here because this is all piled on top of concrete up a fair distance into the hillside there. There in the back, I've got my Joe Pye weed that's finally come up. It was barely visible above the ground when we left for England, and by the time we came back, it was over a foot tall. There in the very back, that's my little blue stem plant, second year for it. I think it's my third year for the Joe Pye weed. I think I planted, let's see, it's 2026. I think I planted it in 2024. So third summer. There's a blue sage, and that one's from last year. This one is also from last year, and it took off the quickest because that spot got sun faster than anything else. This is called Bradbury's Bee Balm, and it's supposed to be a little hardier and more resilient to stuff here in the St. Louis region than my wild bergamot bee balm. So we'll see how this does. I planted just a ton of iris bulbs that I ordered online last year and hoped that they would get established and come back. And of all the ones that I planted, only a small handful have come back. So you can see there are a couple coming up right there together. And then over here, there's another little set of them, and that's it. So not a really great investment. So that's a lesson for you that, let's do that. Let's see what that does. I know it distorts the perspective a little bit. It's more expensive to buy things from a greenhouse than it is to buy them online or to buy them really, really small as plugs. But you're going to get better quality. You're going to get more for your money if you get it from a greenhouse. Then in the back, I've got alternating big blue stem and Indian grass. And so I've got 4 big blue stem, and interspersed with that is 3 Indian grass. I don't know how they'll do back there because that's not super sunny, and they really do need to get a lot of sun, but I didn't want to put them in front because they'll get so tall if they do take off that they'll hide everything else. You can see my hostas are doing reasonably well. The ones that are closer to the front don't get as much nourishment from those rocks and can't put down as much root. So there's an elbow marginata that's not doing super great. Same there. Also, the rabbits love to eat those. But that guacamole one there is doing really well. And this one purports to be guacamole too, but its collaring isn't quite the same as the other guacamole, so who knows. And then I think the prettiest ones are these Catherine ones. And I've got some up in the front that are called Happy Days, D-A-Y-Z, because we've got to do everything cutesy. And they kind of look like that as well, that yellow and green mixture. So I'm happy those came back. I think I just planted those for the first time last year. What else have we got? Oh, I planted some more. I don't like the word rattlesnake master because I don't like rattlesnakes, and so I was calling it snake root, which is fine. That is one common name for it, but there are other plants called snake root. In fact, I think several. And so to avoid confusion for anybody besides me who was here, its Latin name is Yuccafolium something, and you can see if you look close, it's not a yucca, but Yuccafolium. Its folium is leaves, foliage, and so it's got yucca-looking leaves, and it'll put up a pretty nice white or blue bloom. Okay. Now, I've got these new cages around my eastern blazing star because last year the rabbits ate those off over and over and over again to where they could barely take off. I was surprised that they even came back this year. And so these must taste much better than most things because they love to eat them. I've got a cage around that one, and I've got a cage around this one, and hopefully the rabbits are not going to be able to get it. And once they get established, particularly next year, they ought to be in good order. That's a blazing star that's just now starting to come up with everything. I mean, look how big Look how big some of the others are. And that one's just now starting to come up. So I guess theoretically, some of my irises that I planted could still come up. Who knows? You know, everything's a little miracle in the garden. Everything's a little miracle. One of my Indian grass came from the same place as the big blue stem, but it has much more sickly looking plants. I'm not going to say what company it was because they're very nice people, but 2 years in a row, a lot of the plants that I've gotten from them at the native plant sale have failed to do very well. So I don't know if I'll get any from them, but there again, they are the most affordable. So I guess it's just a value judgment. That's fennel, and I am bound and determined I'm not going to let the fennel get taller than my head this year. I am going to... Jacob's yelling at something. He's yelling at Alexa, I think. I'm not going to let this get as tall as my head this year. I'm going to try and cut it off when it gets about boob high, my boobs specifically. And we'll see if it gets a little bushier, but once it gets high like that, it tips over and it's a big pain in the butt, and it also shades everything around it. You can see I got tons of blazing star that are finally starting to do well. This is probably the third summer for them. I got tons of Monarda, no, not Monarda, Asclepias tuberosa, which is butterfly milkweed. And that's coming back. I think this is the third. I think I planted them as bare roots 2 summers ago. And so they're finally starting to look respectable. And you can see they're starting to bloom. And they will bloom earlier than my pink Asclepias incarnata swamp milkweed. There's another rattlesnake master. And there's my one rattlesnake master from last year that's still doing well. And I've got that pinwheel there that's supposed to deter the rabbits, but the rabbits don't bother the rattlesnake master, so I really need to, or could afford to, put the pinwheel somewhere else. I got common ironweed. That's new. You're not going to be able to see it, but I promise you the little stem is still there. And if you want to see what it looks like, it looks like that. And I've got a bigger one a little further over that we'll look at. I got some more pale purple coneflower. That's one of my plants that's done really well over the past few years. And so I got some more of that. This is prairie aster. So I think I got 4 different new kinds of asters. I got smooth blue, sky blue, and prairie aster, and I think there's a 4th one. You can see the rabbits don't seem to be bothering this prairie aster, so for whatever reason, it's not as tasty to them as some of the other asters. There's another pale purple coneflower. And you can see that, I believe, through runners in the ground, but the rue has spread, and so that's fine for now. I may have to put the kibosh on it eventually, but for now it's fine. And the rue is really good for the flowers. The butterflies and the bees like them, and the foliage the black swallowtails lay their eggs on, as they do parsley and fennel. So now here's a sky blue aster. Okay, and here's a smooth blue, and you can see that smooth blue is a little rabbit chewed. So they have their favorites. My Joe Pye weed back in a different corner spread and sent up some different new plants, not from runners, I think, but from seeds, because they were not connected to the old plant. So I moved that. We'll see if it survives being moved, and if it doesn't, I've got plenty anyway. But I didn't want it growing where it had been growing. And that's what it looks like when it's tall. That's my second tallest stand of Joe Pye weed. Now see, that says prairie blazing star. There's dense and there's prairie, and I don't remember which one is which. I think this is actually dense blazing star. They're different. Liatris, one is Liatris spicata and one's Liatris something else. I'll look it up. I've only got just these two of whatever kind this is, and then I've got the Eastern blazing star, and then I've got a ton of that Liatris spicata. Whatever Liatris spicata is, whether that's dense or prairie, that's what the biggest bulk of them are. These are asters. I've got two different kinds in here. You may be able to tell, or you may not. I've got New England asters and showy asters, I think. So there's got a ton of these, and then a smaller amount of those in the back. And I don't remember which is which, but I may trim those a little bit, or I may not. I may just let them go. A lot of people say to trim asters, particularly New England asters, around Memorial Day and then again around 4th of July, just to keep them from going crazy. Now here's going to be some pale purple coneflower, and that's probably the third or fourth summer that's up. Not in a really ideal location because of these concrete blocks that they shade it until it gets a little higher, but at this point I don't want to move it. These are all going to be Asclepias incarnata, which is swamp milkweed. Those, let's just zoom in on them rather than pointing. That back there. Part of this right here, that's two plants. One's a milkweed and one is another plant. And same with this right here. There's milkweed tall in the front, and then there in the back, that's different. And what that is in the back is this plant, which is either a black-eyed Susan or a brown-eyed Susan or a Missouri coneflower. I can't remember which. We'll see. And you can see this one every year. The rabbits love to eat it. So I've got a cage around this that I just put up, and we'll see if that deters them any. Sure, they can still chew it a little bit through because it'll grow through the cage, but if they don't chew it off at the nubbins, it'll grow. That right there is an Asclepias incarnata that Jacob apparently, or maybe I did it, but I think Jacob did it because this was his area. I think he pulled it up when we were weeding the other day and forgot to tell me. And so I found it and put it back in the ground with a little bit of potting soil, and then put the regular soil on top of it to hold the potting soil in, and hopefully it will take root again. These incarnata plants this is probably the fourth summer for them. Let's see. We moved here in 22, so 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and I don't know if I planted those in 22 or 23. But regardless, they're not super long-lived. And I have been guilty in the past few years of deadheading them and trying to get them to bloom again rather than letting them go to seed, and I'm not going to do that this year. So hopefully they will seed and self-seed and send up some new incarnata, so that'll spread a little bit, because otherwise they're getting kind of haggard. This is a curly top ironweed. That's different than the western, or what other kind of ironweed there was over there. I don't remember what kind it was. This is curly top. Ironweed and the goldenrod, the rabbits don't seem to bother too much. This is a showy goldenrod. These oniony looking things are allium, and I don't know how many of those will bloom. I planted a ton of those last year, and they came up last year and didn't bloom too much, and now very few of them have actually come up this year. So we'll see how they do. This one's supposed to be Purple Sensation, and there's supposed to be some drumstick, and who knows, these are gladiolus, and it may be that the gladiolus has crowded out the allium. I don't know. Now that there in the back, that's my giant Joe Pye weed. That's on the north. That's on the northwest corner of the yard, and so by virtue of that, the sun hits it the most because that stand faces the south, and so that was some of the earliest, healthiest stuff to come up. And you can see it's got another little baby there, and then there's another little baby, it looks like, down in there that I probably will have to move because I don't want it growing and crowding out my gladiolus. That's a little blue stem, and that's looking pretty good. I planted that last year. This is my sister's oregano plant that she gave me probably 4 summers ago, and it comes back every year and it blooms, and the bees love it. All these gladiolus will probably shoot up some bloom stalks pretty soon and start blooming, although I remember it being pretty hot when they were blooming, so it may be that it is several weeks yet, but I feel like the leaves are tall enough that they theoretically could send up their stalks soon. This is a silky aster, so that's the other one. Had sky blue, smooth blue, this is silky, and then now I don't remember what was over in the other place, but those are my 4 kinds, if you can remember it. Now, I'm going to confess to a petty theft. When we were in London, we were walking in Green Park, which is adjacent to Buckingham Palace. In Buckingham Palace, it was very clear they had changed their landscaping over because there was fresh dirt and mulch heaped up in the flower beds, but nothing growing in them yet. And so clearly they had just planted new bulbs. Well, in this green park adjacent to Buckingham Palace, they had piled up all of the plants that they had dug up to put in the new bulbs. And I don't know what they were. I think they were tulips. Jacob didn't think they were tulips, but they were a little wilty, but still a little green and not dead. They just didn't have blooms on them, so it was a little difficult for we non-experts to tell. But anyway, I brought home 3 bulbs. I took them and I put them in my suitcase, wrapped them up in a damp paper cloth and put paper towel and put those in a Ziploc bag. And so I'm going to call them Her Majesty's bulbs, even though His Majesty King Charles III is now the monarch. I think it sounds prettier if it's Her Majesty's bulbs. And so we're going to see if those perk up. You can see 2 of them have stems. One of them didn't have a stem and was just a bulb. There's another stem. We're going to see. If they die, I'm not out anything. Didn't cost me a dime. There's my cannas. Aren't those pretty? Those red ones are called Australia. This one here that's very variegated is called Durban. Not like Dick Durban, but spelled a different way. The bulk of them, those yellow, are going to be yellow cannas, and those are ones that are offspring of my grandma Dorothy's yellow cannas. And you can see that one back there is already getting ready to bloom. Here's another Durban, okay? And then over there is more Australia. And you can see, you zoom in, there's some that are just now sprouting up. And so, you know, we still got a lot of excitement and adventure in this springtime. Now, this so far looks kind of like the Durban, and I don't remember what's supposed to be different about Wyoming than Durban, but there is. One of them I think makes orange blooms, and maybe one of them makes red blooms or something. So we'll see. The Wyoming is not taken off as well yet, but I got big plans for that. My blue lobelia and my red lobelia or cardinal flower did not come back this year from last year, and so I don't know whether they were too damp over there or just what. But I put them in a different. I put new ones in a different spot. So far, I've got just the blue lobelia, and I need to go to Garden Heights Nursery and get some cardinal flower because these blue lobelia bees love them, particularly the bumblebees. They stick their little faces in it, and then their cute little butts are sticking out, and they eat that pollen and they eat that nectar, and I just love watching them. But the hummingbirds don't eat that kind because they are not built for it. But what they do, the hummingbirds like to drink the nectar out of the cardinal flower. So if I want to feed both the bees and the hummingbirds with those flowers, I gotta get that. I gotta get that cardinal flower back. More pale purple coneflower there. There's a yellow coneflower, and I think I only got one yellow coneflower because that was the only one they had. Uh, got more butterfly milkweed over here, and this I've had this over here longer than the butterfly milkweed over in the other spot, uh, but it just has never done as well over here. Maybe because I keep disturbing this bed, uh, and shouldn't, but I do. That they chew off is either a New England aster or a showy aster, and that's fine because those suckers will get huge, and I've got a ton of them. So if the rabbits are going to eat anything, I'd just as soon they eat those.